How you doing? Today I want to talk to you a little bit about not just standards-based grading, but more specifically standards-based grading rubrics. So I have a couple of things for you here on this beginning slide. Here's the agenda. First of all, why standards-based grading? Probably won't spend a lot of time on that because if you're talking about a rubrics, you're probably already sold on standards-based grading. So but we'll just mention that a little bit. Picking a rubric. Why do I think a 4-point rubric would be helpful? A little bit about Bob Marzano, what he has to say about it, and National Science Teachers Association as well. There's a couple links. I'm going to have this, a PDF of this, but I think the links will still be good to go. Here's the Marzano link for information on standards-based grading, but I think there's one specific book. There's actually a few books. Chem Matters, again, it's a chemistry teaching thing, but they use standards-based grading with the 4-point rubric. Here's a video on my version of standards-based grading in general, which goes well beyond the rubric, but more about why do it and how would I do it in a classroom and the nuts and bolts of it. If you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel or get in touch with me, it's right down here. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, why standards-based grading? A couple real reasons. And again, if you're thinking of a rubric, you're probably beyond this slide. Number one, the reason I love it, it's research-based. I found in my own experience, it really works. The most important thing is that it changed the culture to questions of teaching and learning and not just, hey, what's my grade? My little bit of background, my own personal story. And again, you can go much more in this link right here. I spent a year just looking at the research, kind of just sort of as a strange hobby. I spent a year talking to teachers who were doing it, and specifically science teachers who helped me figure out the nuts and bolts and who really had it done well. And then I did it last year. And again, it was a great experience for me and I hope for the kids, because it really helped to, I think, in many ways transform the culture to what I'd always wanted it to be, which is about teaching and learning. So that, and it helped kids that normally I think would have fallen through the cracks. And that to me is the most exciting part. But there's lots of things I like about it. Okay, so let's talk about a 4-point rubric. So typically the ones that we typically see have actually 5 parts to it, and it goes 0 to 4. And I love the wording, and you can certainly change the wording, but because a 0 is not failing. Okay, a 0 means it's not completed, or some people say it just means that there isn't evidence yet. It doesn't mean you failed. Number 1 means you need a little bit of help, you need a lot of assistance, you're not quite there yet. And again, 2 is emerging. Number 3, great, you've met the basic standards, and 4, you've clearly exceeded it. Okay. So that's what the 4-point scale is on how I use it. And then you have to say, okay, that's great, but this has to translate into a grade. Okay. And the way that I do it is there's 2 categories and only 2 categories. Everything I do is either a formative or summative assessment. And basically everything in there is 0 through 4. We do redos, but I won't talk about that now. Formatives, we have a bunch of those. They're 50% of your grade. Summatives, we have a lot less. They're 50%, but you do a whole bunch of formatives, and you're pretty much going to know how you're going to do on your summative. There are really no surprises. And Bob Marzano, which I'll talk about later, definitely says, hey, look, if you give somebody a 3, right, which is above average or meeting the expectations, well, a 3 out of 4 would be a 75%, so that'd be a C. No, that's not quite how it works. So you kind of have to come up with a scale like this, and this is the scale that I came up with. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, why a 4-point scale? Okay, why not a 3-point scale or a 10-point scale? Well, one of the reasons, like I said, I did a lot of reading. Marzano has several books, one on standards-based grading, another one that I have linked, and I can't think of the name offhand, but the link is right here. And in his books, he recommends a 4-point scale. And I found for a couple of reasons, this works really well, because because what I like to do is I like to have kids. We actually do a unit at the beginning of the year just on standards-based grading and how to calculate your grade. And it's much easier and makes much more sense for kids to see, oh yeah, a 4, right? That would be really, really great. That's kind of like an A. A 3 is sort of like a B. It's above average. 2, C, I can probably do that or do better. A 1, I need a lot of help. So we're used to sort of F through A, which is going to have to translate into anyway. And these are the natural breaks, and it really does help. And it's easier to sell it to parents as well, and I think to other teachers. And fun fact, when I went to this process, this was the first year of my life that I didn't have a single student or parent come in and complain about their grade. I mean, it was really clear to understand. So that, and also Marzano, he's not just, he's not, the 0 through 4 salesman here. He's done meta-analysis, right? I mean, he's looked at thousands of studies and he's talked to a lot of teachers. Now, look, if you want to make something up, I don't know, maybe it will work better, but why not first try the stuff that people studied and have said, hey, this seems to work pretty well? I mean, so that's why I would probably choose a 0 to 4 scale, and other people see this as well. As a matter of fact, NSTA, National Science Teachers Association, all of their materials, when they said, oh, by the way, here's how we think you should grade it, 0 through 4 scale. Okay, now here's something I really think you should try. What I'd like you to do, this is like an experiment. This is your homework, okay? Whatever rubric you're going to use, however you want to do this, try taking a kid you had last year and look at their grades, right? And what I did was I said, okay, forget homework. Again, I'll talk about that later, but like major things, labs, tests, quizzes, summative assessments, formative assessments. I tried giving them 0 through 4s, what I thought it would have been based on the grade that they had, and used this new grading style to see how it would work out. It seemed to work out much better when I did that experiment with a bunch of former grades from other students. And I played that game. A 0 to 4 scale seemed to work much better than a 0 to 3 scale, because the 0 to 3 just seemed, it was so compressed, that it was just like one little assignment off or something could just sort of make this difference. And so the 0 to 4 seemed to work better. Something else you can think about too is even though we can all have the same rubric, what you may decide is, if one class is accelerated, instead of 3.2 to 4 as an A, you might want to say, hey, maybe it's 3.3 to 4 as an A, right? And as opposed for academic, it might be 3.2 to 3.4 as an A. I mean, you can look at it that way as well. But anyway, whatever you decide, again, I'm kind of sold on the 0 to 4 scale. However, I just want to encourage you to continue to have conversations, and I would love to be part of those, just about standards-based grading, just because two big reasons. Number one, it really does change the culture. It really does begin to change the culture to this beautiful thing of like, hey, let's really talk about teaching and learning with kids, So that was the first thing. And the other thing too is, I know, and I could elaborate further, I had some kids that if I had been doing it the old way, 90 to 100 and so on, and here's the old style of doing things, I can tell you right now, they would not have made it. And under the standards-based grading, they're like, oh, wait, I think I can do this. It gave them confidence. And so, and it was authentic too. It was great. So, big fan. I've talked too long. Sorry about that. But again, please keep in touch. Chad Husting would love to talk more about this, and would love to, I'm more than happy to share anything I have, and I would love to learn from you as well. Thanks.